Hey guys, so today we're getting back to one of our primary foundational principles, which is the structure of the human body being a really important part of health and healing. Now, when we talk about the skull and the spine, most people agree that that can be a very important thing. When I talk about the mouth as being really important for the structural component of your body, most people have more questions with that. So let me explain a little bit more. The way that human beings exist in gravity is pretty interesting actually. So we have our skull, our teeth. Our top teeth are part of our skull, so wherever your skull goes, your top teeth are going to travel with it as well. So then what we have is we have a free hanging bone, the jaw, that hangs off of the skull, and it can move in a lot of different ways. It goes front to back, it can go side to side, and it can also twist and torque different ways as well. So there's a lot of potential for compensation there. And for better or for worse, the jaw oftentimes taking on a lot of different movements that it wasn't necessarily designed for. So the general idea here is we're getting more and more of a load on our bodies from a structural perspective. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that, and I won't go into like the full exhaustive list, but a couple of the really key points is nutritionally, we're having a much harder time overall than we used to, right? Like it used to just be everything was organic and there was no grocery stores or all these chemicals and everything. So anything we put in our bodies was gonna have some benefit to it. Nowadays, as we know, there's a lot of different ways we can get ourselves in trouble nutritionally. I've talked about it in a couple of my other videos. If you're interested, go check it out. But what all this equates to is essentially we need a certain amount of nutrients and we need to not have certain inflammatory things present for our genes to express properly from a genetic perspective. So essentially when things are firing appropriately, then we get better symmetry from side to side. And in particular, the middle part of the face, the maxilla, is going to have a tendency to grow nice out and broad, and it also functions with our tongue to do that. So the tongue is actually a huge driver for our overall facial development, and because of that, the overall structure. What happens to a lot of us is nutrition comes up, the lives that we live aren't very kind to our bodies as well, so we spend a lot of time in this front forward compressed position. And again, what this equates to is for a lot of people, instead of the middle part of the face growing out and broad, it starts going high and narrow. We're starting to see this more and more, so tooth crowding and weird stuff happening with the teeth is more prevalent today than it ever was before. There was a Harvard expert that looked at over 13,000 skulls for human beings that lived before farming was ever invented. 0 cases of any crowding or malocclusion. So there was no dentists, there was no retainers, there was no nothing, and just skull after skull showed like these beautiful broad arches with no crowding in the teeth. Now it's pretty hard to find. Most kids have some sort of crowding going on and shifting around, and I was definitely one of those people as well. So again, we're getting to a kind of a point in our health and our history where this is becoming way more of a conversation than it ever was before. So if we have a palate that's growing high and narrow, we have teeth that are growing together crowded because certain things didn't develop as broad and out as they should have, it starts a laundry list of problems from a structural perspective. Because now instead of the jaw being able to sit down and forward to catch out the mid part of the face that was in a great position, this is back. The jaw has to rotate down and in and tilt back like this. And from there, it starts to close down the airway. The jaw joint itself is going to start to get compressed, so TMJ is starting to show up for a lot of people as well. This bite starts going all different ways as the jaw joint's trying to like move and pivot in a compressed position. And again, the idea here is the jaw and the front part of the face is actually one of the biggest ways that we hold ourselves upright against gravity. So the way this works is the back of your skull and the front of your teeth kind of form this ring and box that the spine gets to sit underneath. So if this is in a good position, then the spine's got like a really nice place to sit. If everything's torqued forward, the head rotates down, the shoulders start doing this. And again, I was one of those kids where I was like, hey, always sit up straight. Like, I just consistently had this posture like this. It's still not perfect, it's a lot better than it used to be. But when I started learning about the importance of the mouth and the jaw and its role in posture and standing upright, I was just blown away. Like, this was not something we talked about in chiropractic school. It was not something that I had ever heard before. But again, once you start to realize the implications of this, it's really profound and it's super important. So again, if you're dealing with any chronic head or neck pain, if you know that your posture sucks and like you're trying to work on it, but it keeps going to a bad spot, this is something you should definitely consider, is the position of the jaw and the teeth. And for a lot of people that I've worked with, this isn't like a surprise. It's like, yeah, I know my posture sucks, and yeah, like I know I have a ton of jaw and dental problems, or like my bite or my jaw clicks every time I try to open my mouth a certain amount, or like I open my mouth to here and then my jaw does this like weird shifty thing, or I only want to chew on one side of my mouth because one side like feels weird or it's painful on one side. Like it could show up in a lot of different ways. So if you're noticing this for yourself, again, this is not to be ignored, and it can be a really critical part of your overall structure for your body. So the two things I have listed on the board here are two really cool, really easy ways to get started on your jaw and mouth health. Because usually when we're talking about crowd and when we're talking about jaw position, the first thing people think is like, I either need braces or I need Invisalign. This was the other thing that really opened up my whole world as I started learning more about this, is that a lot of dentistry talks about shifting teeth around in the box that's already there. What I didn't realize is the actual shape and position of your facial bones can develop and change over time if they're put under the right environment. There's something called Wolff's Law that is true for everyone in any body. It's that your body's going to remodel to the stressors that it's put under, right? So I mean, if you can put your body in the right environment and you can get the right amount of tension on certain bones, they will mold and develop over time. So myomunchie is a really cool way to start. So what this is called is an active way to work on jaw and tongue position. And what this means essentially is you're upright, you're awake, and you're doing like a chewing motion. And this myomunchie essentially looks like a fancy mouth guard. What it's going to do is, by having some depth to it, it pushes the jaw down and forward, and it allows things to move into that more neutral position. So you're already starting from a better spot, and then you're exercising with your jaw in a better position. So it's a cool way to functionally exercise the position of your tongue and your jaw to make sure that we can get this into a better seated position. And it's cool for decompressing as well, because if the jaw's been racked back and in like this for a long period of time, it's really nice to get this open back up and again seated in a better position. So myomunchie is the first thing I want to talk about, and again, that's more of an active role. The second thing is myobrace. So this is kind of a combination of passive and active, and what passive means is you can actually wear this at night. So again, it looks like a fancy mouth guard. There's some structural differences compared to the myomunchie. But then what you're getting is you're getting the benefit of the length of the entire night of having the tongue in a good position, and the myobrace itself applies an outward traction in a way that can allow that the facial bones in that whole box that the teeth live in to get to a better position. And then the other thing is you're supposed to wear it a little bit when you're awake as well. So same thing, you're upright, your muscles are engaged more actively, and you can kind of get that combination of the two. To get a myobrace, you do need to find a professional who's able to order those for you, which would be good anyway, because then you can get a good professional assessment and make sure that you have a good idea of what your starting point is and what the best way to get yourself into this is. So again, I wanted to give you a couple options that are available, because when I was going through this, I was just like completely blown away. I couldn't believe that more people weren't talking about this. But for me, the big part of this conversation was, one, recognizing that the position of your teeth, your jaw, and the facial bones that kind of make up this whole box is really important of how we exist in gravity and how we can improve ourselves structurally as human beings. And the second part of this is, instead of only shuffling things around within the box that's already there, there's some cool things you can do to actively work on improving the box that you have. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Integrate this idea that the mouth and the jaw are really important for their overall structure. I'm looking forward to continue to talk to you guys about this because it is super important. Again, let me know if you have any questions. Subscribe if you like the video. We have future videos coming out for you.